All right, so so for site owner, you gotta know. Of course, you gotta know like the CRC perspective, and then tomorrow you're gonna meet. Because today you did a visit like as a site.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to see how the coordinators pretty much do everything. Then you also looked at it later as a CRA. So in that case, you were like CRC does the work,
Yeah.
and then the QA, quality assurance, or the site director serves kind of like the monitor inside the site. So it's good to do that report, especially if you want to be a site owner.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna eventually or initially do the coordinating. But then the idea is, if you want, what you do to hire this person, and then you move into this role. Okay, and then if you want to eventually, you move out of this role into like just business development.
Gotcha.
Or whatever you'd like at that point, like budgets, whatever your strengths are, whatever you like. If you don't like any of that, you do the same thing, you hire somebody here. Yeah, but then the more people you hire, the more studies you need to make the same profit. So when you're starting out, like really you can do well with just one study if you're the coordinator. Right? So as long as you keep in mind all the stuff from the report, I mean that's literally what the monitors look at. They don't look at anything else when they come for an IMV except what's in that report. So if you...
And the patient...
Yeah, like when monitors come to the site.
Yeah.
Let's say you only have one study, right? Because you're starting out a new site.
Yeah.
You're the coordinator and you're nervous because it's your first study. That report is all the monitors looking at.
Oh, okay, I got you. This report right here.
Yeah.
I got
if you do it yourself, on like audit yourself on your studies, you're going to be fine. Nothing's going to go wrong. The only thing you have to pay attention to the protocols, because every protocol is different.
I got you.
And every protocol has its own inclusion, exclusion, its own potential for deviations.
Gotcha.
So that's where you can kind of screw up if you don't pay attention to the protocol. But as far as the fundamentals of research, they don't change no matter the protocol.
Gotcha.
And those reports are all about that. Now for some studies, the report will focus more on some of the more challenging aspects of the protocol, or the more dangerous aspects, like where sites could potentially screw up more.
I got you. But it's pretty standard as far as...
That's pretty standard for the fundamentals.
I got you.
But if it's like a special study that requires like a little more oversight from the CRA, they might add another, like an extra section on maybe like PK. Like, did you check the PK samplings that are being done every 5 minutes?
I got you.
But this is pretty generic for everything.
I got you.
Right, so you gotta know, this is really what you gotta know, because you already know the fundamentals. So now it's just a matter of learning the protocols when you get them.
I got you.
And then you want to have SOP, okay?
For your site.
Now the thing with SOP is that they are auditable. So what a lot of sites do, because I like to, when I first started, I read this book called The E-Myth. You ever read that?
No, I have not.
Let me see if I can find it. I gave it to you.
E-Myth?
Yeah, the E-Myth revisited. This is, you can have it. This is what I created the. So basically, it tells you like, okay, the way McDonald's set up their business is, this is how you make a burger. Like this is how you make a cheeseburger. This is how you make a Big Mac. This is how you make French fries. Like very detailed. So you can just give it to
anybody,
a coordinator, and they'll, they don't even need training. They just look, okay, this is how I do it. I mean, you train them on where everything is and the nuances, but you want to make it as detailed as possible. So that's the temptation to make your SOPs that. That should not be your SOPs. Okay, that should be more like your employee manuals.
I got you.
That you do not give to sponsors or FDA. Okay, that's a document for the staff.
I got you.
When you hire them, that's not your SOP.
Gotcha.
Okay, the FDA will audit your SOP. If the FDA knows about the employee manuals, they might ask for those too. But your SOP is what GCP states you need to have.
Gotcha.
Standard operating procedures. So your SOPs can be a more vague description of your detailed manuals. When I first started, I made the mistake of making my SOPs very detailed. Okay, and then the issue was we had some sponsor audits, and they were like beyond industry standards as far as what I was having my staff do.
Gotcha.
Because I wrote them all like word for word. Sponsors would tell me, hey, this is good, like it's great, but see, they're not doing this. And if the FDA audits you because that's your SOP, they're going to get you for not following your own SOP.
Gotcha.
So you should make this a manual for your employees, but then all formal training goes through the SOP. So staff, reads those first, the manual, because that's really how you do it.
Gotcha.
But the SOP is more for the sponsors and the FDA.
I gotcha.
That's the way I do it. That's the mistake I made, was not separating them at first. And then I realized that you're supposed to make these things kind of more generalized, so that you can't really get in trouble if they audit you. I mean, you still can.
I gotcha.
But they shouldn't be completely different than your manual. They should just not be as detailed
I gotcha.
as your manual, because the manual, it's going to be so detailed. If somebody misses a step, it's not really going to screw up the process
Gotcha.
too much. But if your SOP is more of a vague or general version of that, they won't really see where they missed the step,
Gotcha.
if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
So that's what you should do. But the E-Myth, like, that's how you should compartmentalize, like deconstruct your site. So you have PI. All you need is a PI, a coordinator, and then you need to get studies, right? So that's BizDev.
Mm-hmm.
That's right here, BizDev.
Yep.
And then it contracts and budget, and then patient recruitment, and quality assurance, which we already have. These are like all you need for research site business. Like you don't, I'm trying to think, so recruitment, you need a PI, you need a coordinator, you need patients, you need studies, which is BizDev.
Mm-hmm.
You need contracts and budget. And that's pretty much it. So you want to deconstruct all these positions. Like you ideally want a manual for coordinators. Alright, like on day one when you're new hired, what do you do? Well, GCP, IATA, NIH, right? Then you break it down even more. Like, okay, for this study, on this visit, what do you do? And those are easy because in the protocol has schedule of assessments. So you can make a flow chart. I used to have, when I first started, I had a study, and I put out a flow chart. This was when I hired my first employee, who was my friend.
Gotcha.
I had like a big poster, and then I would put like screening, like visit 1, patient comes in, ICF. Did they complete? Yes or no? Yes goes here, no goes here. Stop, go back, like one of those flow charts, right?
Yep.
So you want to make one for, you don't have to make one for each study, but it would be helpful.
Just makes things easy, yeah.
But for like a site manual for a coordinator, you're not going to talk about specific studies. So you're going to talk about things that they need to be doing on a daily basis. Like, this is how you enter data in EDC. This is how you interact with monitors. This is what you do when you go in investigator meetings. This is what you do when a patient comes in for pre-screening. This is what you do when the patient comes in for screening. This is how you remind doctors what they need to do. This is how you reply to emails. Like, as detailed as you want, it's your business.
Gotcha. Now, for someone like me, come brand new, I'm assuming I'm going to gain this experience through being this, taking on the role of CRC.
That's why you got to do it first.
I gotcha. Now, if I want to bypass that step, does your
if you want to bypass that
consultation
step, no. Our consultation we can help. It'll be less painful.
I gotcha. But
Okay.
it's beneficial to go through that step.
Yeah,
I
like
gotcha.
we'll tell you, okay, watch out for this road hazard. It's there. Watch out for it. As opposed to you not knowing about it,
I
right?
gotcha.
but it's just gonna make it a little less painful. It makes the biz dev less painful.
I got you.
It makes the contracts and budgets less painful. I mean, literally these two things, biz dev and contract, we do it for you.
I got you.
Okay.
How much
So
experience?
it's gonna at least take this out of the way for you at the time. So you're gonna have to focus your time on the operations.
I got you. How much experience with the CRC before?
Like 1 to 2 in 1 year, you should learn all like the ops. Especially you, because you did the Siri Academy. Like
Yeah.
you're starting with a running start. You're not starting from not knowing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? Another thing is like regulatory, right? Startup regulatory. Like what's the process for startup regulatory? Then you have all the monitoring visits too, like SSV,
Yeah.
okay, SIV, IMV, closeout visit. For the coordinator, you want to make manual. This is what you do at a site selection visit. This is how you behave. This is how you start. This is where you make sure the PI comes in at what time. This is where you tell the monitor the PI is coming in at this time instead of this time. This is like detail, okay. SIV, same thing. What do? When do you let the PI know about the SIV? When do you let the other staff know? What do you do? When the monitor gets there, what do you start with? IMV, okay, do you bring the action items from the previous visits to her attention at the beginning of the day? I mean, it's all up to you. And you're going to learn it all by doing it. To bypass it,
Hire someone.
if you hire someone, you can do that. But how are you going to learn? You can
Still,
dissect her
yeah.
brain,
Yeah.
right?
Got you.
Unless she like does this, which I doubt, because that's like not a coordinator's job. Is not gonna like deconstruct everything they do, unless you make them do that. Maybe you can do that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want you to deconstruct everything you're doing today. And you could do that, but no one's gonna. They're not really gonna, and they won't do as detailed as
Got you.
you would, because they're just doing it so that you're happy, not to where they're creating a document that someone's gonna actually use.
Gotcha.
There's really no shortcut here. You can hire someone and have them develop these manuals with you, but then you pay them more, and you tell them that as soon as we hire our next staff member, you move into this role, QA, right? Maybe they'll probably do it at that point, but I still think you need to try to learn as much as you can of this stuff. But that's an option. Like if you want to hire an experienced coordinator, I see a lot of times these experienced coordinators bring like the baggage with them from the previous sites. It might be good or bad. You don't know. And if you're new, you really don't know. Maybe it's not a good process that they have.
How detailed is the CRC Academy? As far as
Monica teaches it. Monica, CRC Academy good?
Yes.
can I learn all this stuff? I guess I'm trying to.
Yeah,
what's
you
the
learn all
fastest
this
path
stuff.
to get this up and running?
Well, you
without-
learn all the stuff that we cover.
We've covered some of this stuff already as far as the
Yeah, you cover it from a CRA perspective.
I got you.
So like, let's see. Look, 6th week, I just pulled it up right here. CRC responsibilities. Alright. 7th week, feasibility assessment. How to do site selection visit.
Gotcha.
Study endpoint, inclusion, exclusion. 8th week, informed consent process. SIV, 9th week, regulatory. I mean, yeah, look at all this stuff.
Gotcha.
I just pulled this up. That's basically breaking down what this person does, right?
Gotcha.
CRC. PI, it's less detailed because they don't do as many things. It's mainly around patient oversight. But for your company, if a PI is going to work for you,
Yeah.
here's your manual. Okay, this is what we expect from you. And this actually helps when you're going out to network with PIs. Like, when the screening comes in, my coordinators are going to do this, this, and this, and this. This is what you have to do. Review the labs, review the ECGs, review the inclusion-exclusion criteria. My coordinator will be there with you, sitting down while you're doing it. Okay? Their book could be a little less extensive because they're not doing as much. Okay? CRC's doing all this stuff. PI, for SSV, literally you show up and you talk about your experience with that therapeutic indication. That could be your manual for the PI. For the coordinator, it's you sit them down, you take them on a site tour, you talk to them about everybody's training, everybody's expertise. It's way more thorough. because they're the ones running the show.
Gotcha.
PI sub-I could be the like same manual. You can even call it like a clinician's manual.
Gotcha.
For your site. I had one. I need to find the one I had. Because I had a manual. I had a CRC manual, which kind of evolved into our SOP. But then I had a PI sub-I manual. I need to find it, but we don't actually use one now. But it's if I were starting over, I would do all this.
Gotcha.
It's what I did when I started.
Gotcha.
But things just got lost or evolved into other things. But this is what I would do, and then have a manual for this too. QA, site director. Then eventually, when you figure out this stuff, and the patients are coming in, that's another one, patient recruitment. Right? Like, where are you going to get the patients? What is your... You're going to hire recruiters like that are based on commission only, probably. So, where do they start? Chances are they don't have any research experience. So what are you going to do? Just send them out in the street? Like, you have to have like a roadmap for them.
Gotcha.
This is what works. You go to these doctors. This is what works. You go to these fairs. You go to these health fairs. You go set up booths. We'll pay for the booth. You go to support groups for patients. Different things like that.
Gotcha.
You put that in there. You post on Craigslist. You post on Facebook ads. You do Instagram. Like, every detail. Each of those things, like, you can break it down into like incredible detail.
Gotcha.
And then you refine it as you learn what's working and what doesn't.
Gotcha.
I did a lot of refining when I started. Like, I was like, okay, this doesn't work, I'm gonna take it out. This does work, I put it in. But that may work just for one site, it may not work for every site.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
SOP, more vague. You can almost give this to any site. They have to change a few things, but if it's vague enough, you can use the same SOP at different sites.
Gotcha.
This is the one that's auditable. Okay? And then you have regulatory. You could break that down. Once you figure out this stuff and the business, you have like 3 studies and you have patients coming in, you can start learning or deconstructing biz dev, how to get studies. Okay, what do I do? What networking events do I go to? Do I go to clinicaltrials.gov? What else do I use? Do I use Zymewire on top of it? Do I go to LinkedIn? Which conferences do I go to? You got to learn by experimenting. Every therapeutic indication is different. I don't even know all of them. Like, there's conferences for therapeutic indications I've never been to that you can probably get studies at if you attempt.
Gotcha.
So then you're going to create a manual for this, and then a manual for this. The only one you don't have to make a manual for is the one that you never intend to not do. And if you don't intend to do any of these, then you have to make one for, at least I would make a manual for everything that you don't want to do.
I gotcha.
Right? Like, let's say you wanted to do just contracts. You wouldn't have to make a manual for that because you're going to do it all.
Yep.
And you're the owner, so you don't need to train anyone on it ever. You'll handle it, right? But you should, and you don't have to do manuals for any of these things. It's just going to help you.
Yep.
Trust me, especially if you're trying to do what you're doing, which is get people in to do their jobs.
It helps.
Yeah, it's just a lot of upfront work. That's what that book's all about.
Gotcha.
The E-Myth, it's fantastic.
Gotcha.
So that's the ops. That's the business. PI, patients. Most of what you learn in the CRA Academy is about these things.
Yep.
And about GCP, which is like kind of overarching all this stuff. Except for biz dev and contracts, it's not really, GCP doesn't really apply here, but it applies to this stuff for sure.
Gotcha.
So this is all CRA Academy stuff and CRC, and this is like Site Owner Academy type stuff. And patient recruitment is like a mixture, because there's some GCP principles for recruitment,
Gotcha.
because it's patient safety.
Yeah.
You can technically create like advertisements that are unethical or coercive, so that would apply to GCP. But biz dev, contracts, except for like Sunshine Act, like regulatory stuff, but the sponsors are going to worry about that, not you.
Gotcha.
And then like all these reports, like this report you're doing, the report you're going to do tomorrow with oncology, that's QA, right? Site director, but you're going to also know, you're going to see the coordinator there, you're going to see their work, their quality of work. You're going to know by the end of the day if that's a good coordinator or a bad coordinator. And then you're going to know when you start your site, the same thing. You just do the same process. You'll have those reports. You know, we can email you the templates. All you need is the IMV one.
Gotcha.
To prepare for a site selection visit, we can give you a SSV report. I think it's in the book, our book. There's a SSV template in there.
Gotcha.
That's how you prepare for a site selection visit. And then you could use those reports to create a manual for this person.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's like it's a lot, but when you break it down, it makes more sense. And the sites that do really well have this down to like a science for what they know exactly what works for their site, and they have people trained on just like one aspect. Like the bigger sites, at the smaller sites like this, pretty much like everybody can do almost all of this. It's small, we're not doing a huge number of studies, we're doing like 8 studies a year.
Gotcha.
You go to a site that does 20 studies a year, or even 15, they have a CRC. One of the sites I mentioned, their CRC doesn't even touch regulatory binder. They have a regulatory specialist for that. They don't do anything with recruitment. They have recruitment specialists. Everything's streamlined. And I think for the bigger sites, it makes more sense to do that because you're building a bigger bucket to hopefully catch more rain.
Gotcha.
But when you first start out, this is it. It's just going to be this guy or gal, PI, and you. And the PI will be the PI, and you will be all this stuff.
Gotcha.
But if you want to make a big site, streamline it. If you just want like a small site like this, you don't need to worry about any of this. You just can do it all the rest of your life. You still make good money. Probably what CRA make. You can make a CRA salary if you have 2 studies a year. They have to be average paying studies.
Yeah, yeah.
2 studies a year with a decent recruitment.
What's the average paying study?
$1,400 a patient visit. Getting about 10 patients in each study
Gotcha.
per year. You keeping like 90% or like 80% of margins, give the PI 20. You making like a low end CRA salary without leaving your city.
Gotcha.
So if that's what you want to do, you don't even need all these manuals. It's just going to be you. But I know because we talk, like you want to have like a bigger business, and you want to scale it with other sites too.
Yeah.
So then the manuals become actually even more very useful. Yeah. Especially that CRC manual, which for us that's evolved into our SOP, and now we're with all these audits, like sponsor audits we're actually getting our SOPs less detailed, and those are moving back to manuals. We did it backwards.
Gotcha.
But it's because they've been through like so many audits.
Gotcha.
Auditors recommended, hey, if you're not going to do this, take this out. This is good for like your employees to do, but it shouldn't be in your SOP. It could be an employee handbook.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then all action items is what CRAs are going to look for. They're going to look for deviations of protocol violations. A protocol deviation, sometimes the patient can continue in the study. A protocol violation, usually the study will be suspended at your site. Like, and each sponsor is going to determine what constitutes what, because I've seen deviations called violations before, and vice versa. It's really up to the sponsor.
Gotcha.
They're not all the same.
Gotcha.
And just like I said, SOPs are meant to be vague. GCP is meant to be vague. GCP, nowhere in GCP does it say a PI needs to even be an MD. Nowhere. But no sponsor is ever going to. Like 99% of the time, the PI is an MD or a DO. I've seen some nurse practitioners, but that's like, they're so rare.
Gotcha.
Right, but GCP says it doesn't matter. You could be a high school dropout, be a PI. It doesn't say anything about that.
Gotcha.
That's their version. That's the government's version of SOP.
Gotcha.
But the sponsors have their own, like, employee manual. No, this is what we want.
Gotcha.
You're doing the same thing they're doing. It's the same kind of process.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
What else do you think? You found anything complicated during when you're doing the
This
report?
right? Well, I mean, I just want to run through real quick, just kind of explain what I should have been doing. I mean, I think some of it was pretty straightforward.
Anything you're confused about?
So staff and facilities, investigator continues to fulfill obligations. Like this, I guess we just go back to the sections, the staff and facility. Yeah. As a CRA, when you look at this, where are you going? Where are you trying to pull information from?
Staff and facilities. So you want to, as a CRA, so we'll put on the lens of a CRA now. Staff and facilities, you want to you're looking for PI oversight. So are they reviewing labs? You know, are they reviewing ECGs? It's okay if they have other MDs, sub-Is, reviewing labs, but the PI needs to put their footprint on some of these documents as well to demonstrate oversight. Yeah, you're looking for PI oversight. So either progress notes, or signing off on lab results, or if there's SAEs, like acknowledging that they've reviewed the SAEs. Those are PI oversight. Staff and facilities, you're also looking at, okay, is the study coordinator overworked? Do they have too many studies? Are they paying attention to your study? Are they entering the data in a timely fashion? I have one site I'm monitoring, they're like 3 months behind on data. It's almost impossible to monitor.
Gotcha.
So that's the staff, and then the facilities. You're kind of looking for like obvious things like, is it secure still? Did they have like a flood and the source document get ruined? When it comes to the IP, were there excursions? Did a bunch of new people just move in and now the coordinator's sharing a room with the CRA, or is there no more room for the CRA anymore? Do you have to like work in the waiting room? That's the facilities. Also the calibration logs, like is the equipment still calibrated?
So you're checking for all these things, right?
Yeah, yeah. You're kind of doing like a holistic approach to that section.
Gotcha. And the IRB ethics.
IRB, yeah. If you're like most sites, you're going to use the central IRB.
Okay.
So you don't need to worry too much because the central IRB are like kind of cookie cutter. So you're not going to have issues if you're using a central IRB unless you do something that the IRB says, hey, we don't want this site anymore. And the IRB can audit you too. Like if they see a lot of deviations that affect patient safety, they can audit you. I've had IRB audits.
Gotcha.
If it's a local IRB, it's a little more complicated to monitor. Like hospitals usually have a local IRB, academic institutions, and they have different policies than the central IRB. So for those sites, as a CRA, you're going to write more comments in that section. Because the sponsor won't know the details of that IRB. It's not it's not the vendor they appointed to the study.
Gotcha. So I guess as far as checking on these boxes, you're looking at reg binders. So it says, first question says, IRB/EC approves up to date. So you're going to reg bind and go to that section?
Yeah, or if you have access to the IRB portal. Most times as a CRA, if you work for a big CRO or sponsor, you will have access. Sometimes if you're a contractor like me, I actually don't have access to those IRB portals. But that's an easy way to do it is you log in because you're going to have IRB portal. If you don't have that, you're relying on the coordinator or the regulatory specialist to provide you with all the most recent updated things that they have.
I gotcha.
Like at one of the universities I monitor, they have a coordinator. He just interacts with patients and does all the EDC stuff and completes the source, but they have a regulatory specialist that does all those things. Then they have a pharmacist that does all the IP stuff, right? So you would ask whomever it is that it applies to.
I gotcha. So each of these sections, you just tracking down the right person, going to the right
looking for the right document, making sure that the site's using the right document. It's one thing to have the latest version of the informed consent, like as a template.
Yeah.
It's another thing to actually be using that one. And that goes in your manual too for the coordinator. You know, and the QA specialist. How do you ensure? What's our process for ensuring that we're using the most recently approved ICF? How do we know it's the most like checklist, right? This is a good book. Also, Checklist Manifesto. Can't give it to you yet because I haven't read it. But checklists save you from so many mistakes, right? So you should incorporate some kind of a checklist, especially for the QA. Once you do the manual, how do you make sure people comply with it? Well, you got a checklist. Did you do this? Did you do that? Same thing with the process of consent. I see sites have a process of consent in their source. That's a checklist. Did you do this? Did you do that? I mean, that report is a checklist.
Gotcha.
Right? That's how the sponsor ensures that the CRA is not missing anything.
Gotcha.
You want that same thing for your staff.
Gotcha.
You just got to create it somehow. And it has to make sense to them.
Gotcha.
You can't just use that report for your coordinator because not everything's going to make sense for them. You have to like customize it for that job.
Gotcha.
Or even for that study. If you can, customize it for that study. Like some of the really good sites, they do that.
Gotcha.
That's for the QA person though, in your site, or the site director.
You guys have a pharmacy section here?
Yeah, and
no, actually, like literally in the on-site.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know?
It's right here. It's the last room.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So
So
the
there you
pharmacy-
check for like temperature excursions.
I gotcha.
You're gonna look for temperature logs. What do you do if there is an excursion? What if the site didn't know there was an excursion and gave the IP? You know, those are the things you're looking out for as a CRA and as a site director. And you have to know, like, if you're a good coordinator, you'll know, okay, like, we just had a temperature excursion. I can't give this IP out to any patients until I get sponsors' feedback on what I need to do.
Gotcha.
Because then the sponsor's going to ask details. Well, what was the temperature range? And then they'll decide, okay, yeah, you can continue using that, but get it documented in an email. Or they may say, no, quarantine it, we're going to send you a new one.
I gotcha.
So then what happens there, coordinator has to reschedule all the patients to come back when they're going to get their IP.
I gotcha.
So all these things have to go somehow in your workflow for the staff.
Gotcha.
It can get pretty complex. But your engineering background, so can't be more complex than that.
I've done enough reports and like stuff like that.
This should come easy to you.
Yeah, again, it just goes back to knowing where to find stuff and understand the whole process.
Yeah, I'm not even really that good about like these kind of things. When I first started out, I had all these manuals and stuff, but then we had people that I hired that would be doing their own version of this. So I'm just hands off. Like I'm pretty much doing like biz dev
Gotcha.
and then marketing for the overall, like all the sites.
Gotcha.
Each site each site that we have has its own structure like this. There's some overlap with the biz dev and the contracts because we can have like Chris doing these, but then each site has like a Monica, Kobe.
I gotcha.
Right, so if you can have like a manual for just you guys, like the parent company, like how do we keep track of our sites?
I gotcha.
How do we bring on new sites? How do we onboard new sites to our process?
Gotcha.
Right, how do we allow them to operate independently, but still benefit from all the infrastructure we have?
Gotcha.
Those are the things that I'm doing now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, back in the day it was all this, you know. And it's helpful to do this. And not only that, you're gonna make the most profit you've ever made, percentage-wise.
Mm-hmm.
You running the whole show. Like you could be almost at 100%.
I gotcha.
You just have to pay the PI. And you can go anywhere, for, like I said, from 10 to 60 depending on what they're doing and what the arrangement is.
Gotcha.
You'll never be more profitable than when you are all these things. And the most profitable I've seen in rare cases, the PI is also the coordinator, is also like the PI is everything.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. That was one of my questions. I was gonna ask why doesn't a PI just take on its own cases. Why
There
do
are
it as part of
some
it?
that do it. There are some. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. See, the reason why is because the main value of the PI is the patient database. And if they quit their private practice,
Mhm.
all they are is being a PI. Unless they have a nurse practitioner or somebody else running the private practice, they lose their, like, they lose this, and this is the hardest thing in the patients, to get in the study. So they don't want to give that up. I know a lot of PIs that keep their private practice just for research,
I gotcha.
and that's increasingly becoming the case
Gotcha.
with all the cuts to insurance reimbursements.
I gotcha.
But they never completely want to leave, right? But I do know some that have, and they do well, but then they're eventually going to run out of patients unless they get this part figured out. And plus, most PIs want to have other people do their work for them.
Makes sense. The partner, I guess.
Yeah, they want to go speak, you know, get paid for that. They want to go teach at the university, get paid for that. They like to have a bunch of like side gigs.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And research for many is like a side gig for many doctors.
I gotcha.
The ones that have focused on just research
Mm-hmm.
do really well. There's some that do really well, like in the industry, they're well known.
I gotcha.
But yeah, even they have a strategy for this. And so, coordinator, you kind of have to have, I think. But you can be that coordinator.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
You got this.
Cool.